just let you know that this is called 49 Fridays. It's a program of the Chamber of Commerce in Columbus. We're here almost every Friday. And okay, Lucas is saying, sorry, his mic doesn't work. Got it. Thanks for letting us know. So we're here as a part of our partnership with Velocities, which is designed to accelerate innovation and entrepreneurship across this region. So one thing we do each week is we gather with entrepreneurs to hear their founders' stories. And today we're really excited to have one of our new chamber members. And this event is sponsored by our friends at Old National Bank, and we're appreciative of their support. When COVID is over, we'll get back together in person, but for now, this is how we gather. So Nance, wait a minute. Aurand-Humpf.
You can just call me Nance if you want. That's easier.
Okay. I just want to get it down in my own head.
Okay.
But she has a company called Nerdsy. She's a self-described like nerd. She's an expert in user experience. She makes really beautiful, effective websites. So I'm going to not steal her thunder and let her tell you her story about her business. Nerdsy Solutions.
I will screen share and get my slides open here.
Great.
Okay, so I'm Nance from Nerdsy Solutions, and I'm happy to be with everybody this morning and grateful for the opportunity to tell you about my business. So I started the business about a month before the pandemic began, which was kind of bad timing, but you know, who knew? And early on I had intended to start coming to 49 Fridays, but then the lockdown happened, things got complicated, and you know, I really hated Zoom at first, but now I kind of like it, so you will probably see more of me. So things got off to a little bit of a rocky start, but I was lucky to have 3 projects to work on early on. So I was busy, but then on March 13th, I got sick with what we think was coronavirus. It was a mild case. So I was able to work in bed part of the time with my laptop, and but I was just really tired for about 6 weeks. So that was a little challenging. As you can see from the slide, we designed conversion optimized websites to help small to medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs stand out on the web. And I'll come back to what a conversion optimized website is in a few minutes, but I thought I would tell you a little bit about us first. Who we are. So Nerdsy is made up of myself and my husband, Jim. And I am our U.S. Army veteran. I served for 6 years as an air traffic controller and air traffic control instructor. I was the first woman in the U.S. Army to graduate top of my class from air traffic control school, and later one of 2 female instructors when I returned to the Aviation Center to teach. I left the military in the 80s and came to Columbus, Indiana for a job. I worked at the airport for a few years while I was waiting to get hired by the FAA. Excuse me, I need to take a drink. During that time, I met my husband, and we were both kind of on different career trajectories. So long story short, we both changed our plans so that we could stay together. So I'm a nerdy creative. Besides being a web designer, I'm a professional artist. I love everything that art, technology, and design have to offer when it comes to creating things, including websites. I'm really terrible at doing nothing. So I'm either learning or creating something most of the time. So in fact, learning is how I got interested in web design. I think it was around 2007 or so, I took a class on HTML and CSS, 2 of the basic building blocks of websites, and I loved it. So when the iPad came out and the iBook store kind of took off, I thought, you know, I want to try to make an ebook from scratch. So ebooks are kind of made up of the same basic code as websites. So I took more classes to learn Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and classes to improve my coding skills. And when my daughter was little, I used to write her these fun little stories to tell her. So I used one of those as for the ebook, and I created a children's ebook. So after that, I was hooked and kind of threw myself into learning how to build websites. I'm a volunteer at Columbus Regional Health. I care about improving how healthcare gets delivered in our communities, so I serve on the Columbus Regional Health Patient Family Advisory Council, which is composed of patients, family members, and CRH, patient experience people. And so if you've read the last thing here on my slide, I had a super spectacular work-related accident with helium once. It's kind of my claim to fame. And I'm not going to go into detail here, but in the interest of time, but if you're curious, please ask me about it. It's the dumbest thing I've ever done, and I never lived it down. And as a result, I don't embarrass easily, and I really try not to take myself too seriously.
I'm intrigued.
So my husband Jim's favorite saying is life is what happens while you're making plans. And it's really true for both of us, but it's also, really true for his career. When he got out of business school, he got a job at Cummins working in transportation, which he did not really like. He was a political science undergrad, so when a new position for a political risk analyst opened up, he kind of jumped on it, and he worked at that for a couple of years. It was his dream job. But he did such a good job. He gave Cummins all the research they needed at the time. So after a couple of years, they thanked him and eliminated his job. Fortunately, they gave him a little time to find something else within the company before they got rid of him. So IT was just starting up at Cummins, and so he moved to IT, and he's been working in that field ever since. So his claim to fame is that he once got a compliment from former Vice President Walter Mondale on a research report that he wrote on Mexico. He still doesn't know how or why the VP read it. Okay, why I started a business. So why start a business? I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I've always wanted to be in business, but I didn't have the opportunity. For many years, I had family obligations that had to come first. I did pursue my art business and I had a print-on-demand store that never really took off. My early life in the military instilled in me a sense of mission, and so I kind of feel lost if I don't have one. So this has become my mission. I love to use my skills and gifts to help people move forward in some small way on their path to success. And so that desire to help people is what gets me out of bed every day. So we started planning the business by looking at the market between 2015 and 2020. The US market for web design services industry doubled from around 20 billion to 40 billion a year. During that time, 70% of the new websites that were built by developers, agencies, or freelancers, which we thought was really good news. By 2016, more than 14 million new websites were created each month. So growth is still projected, but I think how much is probably anyone's guess at this point with COVID and the current economic crisis. So let's see. So developing our USP or positioning statement, to come up with it, I did a competitor analysis of designers in Columbus, Indiana, and Indianapolis. I also researched what businesses want from designers by reviewing about 100 of their job postings on freelance websites. So from that research, we came up with our USP and a formula to express how we create conversion optimized websites that I will show you here in a bit. So Nerdsy Solutions stands out by taking a holistic approach to design aimed at helping small to medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs gain a competitive advantage on the web. We use proven strategies that foster brand awareness, delight, and meet end users' needs, and improve search rankings. And this is the formula that we use. Business objectives plus customers plus Google equals web success. So our core values, we like to collaborate, and we always view our clients as part of our design team. So I kind of believe that curiosity is the key to innovation. And so we give every project an equal amount of energy and curiosity. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist about my design work, so I pay attention to detail and try to make sure that the design is right. So one thing that's important, I think, in web design is to not disrupt what's already working. So that, for me, I usually start with an SEO audit and to find out which pages are working and from an SEO standpoint. And then also really need to hear from the customer or client about, what pages are converting, what things they're doing are converting, so that I know not to disrupt it.
Okay, Nancy, will you tell us again what SEO is and what you mean by converting? Just in case we have folks on the call who don't know.
Okay, so I consider a conversion, for the purpose of what I do. Like if you want to turn a website visitor into a paying customer, that would be a conversion. A conversion could also be something like whatever you want them to do. So if you want them to sign up for a newsletter, that would be a conversion. So that's what I'm talking about there. And SEO is search engine optimization. So it's a way to help your website, help people find you, really.
So the part of your equation on the earlier slide that said plus Google,
yes, that's what you're talking about. Yes. So we designed for 3 things. Okay, so do no harm is about, I kind of see myself as like a physician in a way, because I don't prescribe services and features that won't benefit the client, even if that means I don't get to sell something. So, and then the other thing I think is really important is to avoid making things more complex. You don't want to solve problems for a client and then add more. So we designed for the brand. Your website is a part of your brand expression. So I think it's really vital to stay on brand. So we try to stay honest and own our own mistakes and fix them. And last but not least is keep end users, the people that visit your website, front and center. So our customers. Okay, so our customers are, our target customers are small to medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. And I should probably add nonprofits to the list too, because we've done some nonprofits.
Hey, Nance.
Yeah.
Is your practice mainly digital then?
Yes,
so, like not graphic as well. I mean,
I can do graphic design, but I really don't want to for my business. I feel like I can make more money from doing this. So I would farm that out to other people.
Gotcha. I mean, there's a huge need for this part. That's,
yeah.
I think Kylie said you had joined the startup studio, right? For
yes.
the Boston Beach region? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody on 49 Fridays has heard about the startup studio, but Nance was one of the ones that Kylie got super excited about. It's basically services for startups mainly in the graphic region right now. So whether that's pay-per-click and that kind, or whether it's let me design a business card for you. That way they can, go to one place and we send them to the right people right off the bat. And so thank you for doing that, by the way.
You're welcome. Um, so our customers come from diverse industries. They have equally diverse goals for their websites and different problems that they need to get solved. As you can see, we've worked with several different industries, and I also worked on a product launch, which was fun. So I've come to love the variation in my work. I get to work with different people who have different challenging and interesting problems. And I've had the opportunity to work with a couple of teams, a design team and kind of a marketing team, and that was fun too. So even though our customers have diverse issues, I think one thing seems to hold true for those whose problems aren't really straightforward. And that is that there is this pervasive sense of overwhelm when it comes to thinking about how to get from where they are to where they want to be with their websites. And so I think that sense of overwhelm happens for good reason. There are many things to weigh and consider in design projects, especially early on. People tend to be most comfortable with a straightforward linear process, and design is usually initially kind of messy. So I love this visual representation of design, because I think it is a good general representation of the messiness of more complex design projects. And this, you could think of this as kind of an airplane view of all the activities and processes that go on. Nobody is really comfortable with the mess on the left, not even me. I think it's made up of probably about 70% uncertainty. And so part of my job is to help unravel the mess, put the puzzle pieces together, and move the design more towards the clarity and focus in a final design.
I love this graphic. It's so indicative of any project that you start. It's really a great way to represent that.
And there's a website for this. It's called thedesignsquiggle.com if you want to learn more about it.
Ooh.
Okay, how we design and optimize for conversions. So I'm going to go into this formula that we have in a little bit more detail, but one thing I want you to keep in mind is that this formula is not intended to show you or imply a design process. It's just a simple depiction of what we think it takes to get ahead on the web. So the first part of it, business objectives. To design well, we need to thoroughly understand our client's industry, market, brand, competitors, goals, problems, and constraints. On the lower left, you can see some of the activities that go on during this part. It usually happens, these things usually take place at the beginning of a project during discovery. And in discovery, we're in the most tangled part of that design squiggle on the left-hand side. When we synthesize information that we've gathered in discovery to develop a design plan, we begin to kind of unravel the mess. So plans usually include some assumptions. So we need to consider, and in some cases, plan how to mitigate their associated risk. Okay, so let's look at customers. And sometimes I interchangeably use customers and audiences. So just so you know that I mean the same thing. So we make websites for people. To create well, we need to consider their needs. We need to use empathy as a design tool. And we need to understand user needs and goals, design an easy to use interface that honors the brand, organize content so that it's easy to find, and craft brand messages that resonate. And some of the things that go on in this area are on the lower left.
Nancy, some of this language is reminiscent of IDEO's approach, the design thinking approach.
Yes, I am. In fact, I am a design thinker. So I have taken the, I'm certified in the kind of the first part. I do want to go for the advanced certification too.
Okay, I'm going to follow up with a question later about that.
Okay, sure. All right, let me make sure I got everything from this slide. So. Okay, so I'm just going to define here what I think an audience is for my purposes. So you could think of this as a customer segment if you want to. So I define an audience or a customer segment as a group of people who share particular characteristics that set them apart from other groups in a way that would require unique content or brand messages. So in that, that factor that differentiates them, I call it a differentiator or a segment. And audience segments usually fall into two camps, either demographics or psychographics. So say I had a website that sold health products to, or for women. It's easy to see that an audience segment might be divided by the demographic age, because younger women and older women have different health concerns. They would need different products, different content, and even different brand messages. So I think it's important to figure out the segments early on in design to consider what kind of brand messages you'll need and how to organize information on the website. So pain points. People who visit websites come for a reason. They want information or they have a problem they want to solve. They may also have feelings related to the reason for their search. And I call these questions and challenges big or small pain points. If we practice design empathy, we can start to anticipate audience needs and create messages to address them. When someone visits a website, their visit creates a touch point, an opportunity to help relieve a pain point. So with our smartphones in hand, almost anything we want to know is just a search away. And that has created in us, in most of us, the expectation of immediate fulfillment. And Google calls these moments when we want what we want, when we want it, micro moments. Google describes them as want to know, want to do, and or want to know, want to go, want to do, and want to buy moments. And they kind of reflect different parts of a customer journey. So I think it's important to consider your customer's journey when you craft your brand messages, because you may have different messages for each part of these, each place they are in their journey. All right. So ideally, you want to create brand messages that align with business objectives and address user needs. As people really don't visit websites to look at great logos or super cool visual design. Not that it's not important, it is. You know, I really love visual design, but a solid visual presence just basically says, hey, I'm credible. Have a look at what I do. But it's really, I think, the brand messages that sell products and services. So on the web, I think the best story wins. So storytelling is an effective way to create brand messages. And I won't go into triune brain theory here because I don't know very much about it, but I like the graphic and want to use it to talk about how we make decisions and why storytelling on the web works at converting customers. You can ask anyone about a recent purchase and they will tell you that they made a rational decision based on facts that they weighed. And I mean, we probably all do it. You know, if you want to buy something, you probably do a search and look around, and then eventually you make a decision and buy something. And we're all convinced that that's what we do, that we think rationally about these things. Yet we know from research that 95% of our decisions come from the emotional part of our brain, older parts. And this is a known phenomenon that actually skews research. So storytelling works because it gets at the emotional and survival parts of our brains. Our newer or analytical brain is designed to conserve energy, and that's why we daydream all the time. But somehow, if you think about it, we can all sit through a 2-hour movie and stay engaged. And that's because of storytelling is appealing to that emotional part of our brain. So I think that's why it's really important to have, use storytelling to create your brand messages. So I use a storytelling framework to help do that. So another important part of this customer section is information architecture and user interface design. So information architecture is about how and where you place content on a site, and the user interface is kind of obvious. It's how you design that. So on a website surface, we strive to create an easy to use interface that appears to be simple. And people appreciate simplicity, consistency, and familiarity. So they want to see what they've seen on other websites. They don't want to have to learn something new. So the complexity of a website, a website can be complex and still have a simple interface. We try to hide a lot of the complexity from the website surface, while still making sure that all of the content and information is available to the user. So how we organize information is important. The best way to organize content is to determine the highest priority content and make it the most prominent. So it's a process of just kind of prioritizing and making sure that the things that are most important are the easiest to find. So there's a whole lot more I could say about designing for customers, but I'll move on.
Well, there's really nothing more frustrating than going to a website and not being able to intuitively find what it is you're looking for.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So that part's really important.
Yeah.
Okay, so how we design for Google. Okay, so when someone searches Google, let me back up here. I kind of got off my notes here. Okay. When we design for Google, we make sure that our clients' websites can be found in search engines. So if you have developed great brand messages, somehow you need to get them to the people so they can see them. And Google is like the mailman that delivers the message. So when someone searches, Google tries to deliver the most relevant information to the searcher's query. So if your website matches the searcher's query, then it can come up. If it doesn't, it won't. So, excuse me, I better take a drink. So that makes it important to know what people are searching for in your business category. Then you can tweak your brand messages and even your overall content strategy to align with what users, how users search. And this is especially important if you want to have a blog.
I have a question, Nancy.
Sure.
I noticed this slide doesn't say business objectives plus customers plus Safari. Is Google a placeholder for all search engines, or is Google the one you're most concerned with, and why?
Well, Google is the biggest search engine, and The other ones are all kind of similar. So if you design for Google, you take care of Safari and
The others.
yeah, and the others. Okay, I'll do a little case study just to kind of drive this home. A P&G brand, Olay Skin Products, did some keyword research, and they noticed that a lot of people were searching for information related to getting rid of dark circles under their eyes. They tried an ad leading to the website titled Olay Eye Concern and Treatment Products for Around the Eye. It was unsuccessful at getting people to buy their product. And basically this took people to their website, and on the website, it kind of just gave information about the product. So when the team sat down to try to figure out what went wrong, they decided to think of their customers as a conversation. They decided to think of the question as a conversation, and they asked themselves, how would we respond to someone in the room who asked us, what causes dark circles under the eye and how do I get rid of them? And they realized that they certainly wouldn't respond with, buy Olay, that they would actually try to answer the question. So that's the tactic they tried. And as you can see, they adjusted the title, and they led their customers to a page that directly answered the question. It talked about why people get dark circles under their eyes and what you can do about them. And then at the end, they put a little link to buy the product. And so it was highly successful, and they ended up redoing all of their ads with kind of the same thing in mind. So I think the thing about this case study that I really like is that it shows the importance of brand messaging. It also shows the importance of customers and search. So it covers all three of our kind of things we have in our formula.
And the lifestyle tips might have been get more sleep, or
yeah, exactly.
This happens because you're not drinking enough water. And oh, by the way, you can buy this product.
Right, exactly. So they directly addressed a pain point. So what have I learned from all of this? One thing I learned about myself is how much I enjoy working with other people. I'm an introvert, so that kind of surprises me. And that I actually miss my clients when I finish a job. You know, I want to call them up and say, how are you doing? So I also learned that bad hosting can have a terrible effect on the outcome of a project. So one of the first ones I did, I got started on it, and you know, WordPress runs on like a server-side scripting language called PHP, and the hosting company had not upgraded their PHP in a long time. And in fact, they were like, I think by the time I finished the project, they were 4 major versions behind. So I had contacted them and said, when are you going to upgrade this PHP? And they had no intention of doing it. So at that point, I couldn't talk the client into moving to a different host. And so I left the project with, they had a great website design, I thought, but the website really didn't function well. And so I handled it by trying to just be there for them because I knew they were going to have problems. So when they called, I would try to help, and I didn't charge them for it. And eventually it got to the point where they decided they absolutely had to move. So they called me back up and hired me to migrate things. So now everything's cool, which I'm really happy about, but that was really an uncomfortable place for me for a while. So what do I struggle with? I guess the thing that I struggle with the most is trying to figure out how many projects I should take on at one time, because, you know, I might get a project that would really take me like 2 weeks to work, but I rely on my customers to provide me with information, and sometimes that takes a long time because they have more important priorities. So I've had like 2-week projects end up being 4 months. So I need to figure out how to manage that.
And how to get paid.
Yeah, how to get paid. So if you build it, this is a reference to, the old movie Field of Dreams, if you've ever seen it. If you build it, they won't necessarily come or convert if that's all you do. So websites are just one part of your, your marketing toolkit. But if you design for business objectives, customers, and Google, I think you can see some success. So that's about all I have, I think. If you have an opportunity, stop by my website and take a look at the work we've done.
Now you've got some great examples.
Yeah, we do have I don't have it on my profile on the chamber yet, but I mean, I do have a 15% discount for chamber members too. I mentioned that.
Awesome. Thank you, Nancy.
All right, I will get out of the screen share and then happy to answer any questions. Let's see. All right.
I took a lot of notes. What questions do you all have? I'm going to ask you a question about design thinking.
Okay.
Because you mentioned in your introduction that you're part of a patient, kind of a focus group or an advisory group for Columbus Regional Health. And I know that Columbus Regional Health has worked with IDEO and uses this idea of design thinking to redesign patient experiences. And I wonder if that's one of the things that excited you about being a part of that panel, or?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because I get to see it from both sides, and and so they really do good work, and they really do care about improving patient experience, and they really take what we tell them and kind of run with it. Just to give you an example, there are several of us on the team that really care about end-of-life issues, and there's they weren't really doing well with the transition between hospital, trying to save patients, and hospice. There needed to be something kind of in between. So they kind of ran with that and created a palliative care program that's kind of a bridge between, the care you get in the hospital, which is life-saving, and the care you get in, hospice, which prepares you to pass away. And so that this palliative care program can help patients and families prepare for the next step, hospice.
And in the process of doing that, how did they interact with people going through that or who had been through that? What was that process like?
I don't know that process, so they don't clue us in on exactly all they do. Yeah. But they come to us, and they bring their projects to us, and sometimes they'll do like a group interview with us, like early on, like the thing at the with the mall that they're doing with the mall. They've come to us a few times about that, asking us questions.
So I'm familiar with a project they did on post-operative instructions. They found that a lot of patients would leave but not follow the instructions for self-care upon departure from the hospital. And so they would end up back in the hospital, which is a problem because hospitals get scored on things like that.
Yes.
And their funding can be reduced if they have a low score. And so they actually went through the process themselves of like laying on the gurney or the bed and getting those instructions. And when they found that when they would have the patient fully dressed and ready to leave the hospital and sitting up, looking eye to eye with the nurse, they were much more likely to retain it because they felt less vulnerable. You know, they were kind of in that mindset of, I'm going home, but here are the things I have to do. So
Yes, and we've been involved in that too. But yeah, it's really kind of interesting.
Do you have the opportunity to engage with your customers in a similar way, or do you have to rely on them?
No, so I really haven't been able to use this, the design thinking too much, because most of my customers have specific problems they want to have solved.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've only had one project where I did everything from start to finish, including the content writing, and that was for Centerstone Health Services. And, so some CEOs are just kind of like, just go do it, just do it. And so I'm like, so it's hard to get participation. It's hard to advocate for it.
Here's a question from Lucas. He says,
Okay.
Nance, you mentioned e-commerce in your experience. Can you explain more about what your experience is with e-commerce?
Yes, well, most of my e-commerce experience, I've built websites in Shopify. I really I've done Shopify and WordPress e-commerce websites. I like Shopify because, they take care of sales tax, and that's a big problem that you have to figure out if you're going to use WordPress, and it can be very expensive. So I've done my e-commerce experience is mostly with my own websites for myself that I have. Some have been okay and some have failed. So
Lucas says, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
I'm going to circle back to something at the very beginning because I've had the benefit of hearing the helium story.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
Lead that discussion briefly.
Okay. The story would be so much better if I could do a Mickey Mouse voice, but I can't. And I'm not good at that. But when I was an air traffic controller, when I first came to Columbus to work, they sent me up to the National Weather Service because I had to also be a certified aviation weather observer. So one of the things we did when the weather was bad was we would have to determine whether the airport would be, instrument flight rules where no private pilots or visual flight rules pilots could fly. So we'd have to make that determination, and that's made by visibility and the ceiling of the clouds. So we would send up weather balloons. So we had this huge helium tank at the base of the tower, and then up in the tower, there was a valve, and you could hook the balloons up and blow them up, and then we'd go outside and send them off. So I worked by myself, and I had no traffic, fortunately. And I filled up this balloon, and the balloon flew off the valve, and it was flying around the tower, and the valve fell down behind a gas stove that we had up there. And I think it was winter because the gas furnace up there was on too. And all I could think about was the Hindenburg. I thought the tower's gonna blow, and which is really kind of funny because I handled aircraft emergencies, just kind of did them. And, but thinking about the tower possibly blowing up really freaked me out. So I kept trying to get the thing out, and it never occurred to me that I should open the door of the tower. So at one point I just couldn't get it out. So I decided I should probably leave the tower for a few minutes. And so I tried to call Indianapolis Approach Control. We had this open line between the two places, and so that we could hand the aircraft off to each other. And I lifted up the phone, and this really Mickey Mouse voice came out, and I told them that I had to leave the tower because I had a helium accident. And so I could hear this click, and I knew that put me on speaker. And he said, could you say that again? I didn't hear it. So I said it again. And then I could hear all these guys up there laughing. And they tried to get me to do it a third time. And I said, oh, you heard me. And I just hung up and left. And so I never lived it down. It was a really stupid thing to do. Helium is inert. It wasn't going to blow. And the Hindenburg was filled with helium, it was hydrogen, and that's why it blew up. Anyway, that is the story.
That's a classic.
It is, yeah.
We can all relate. We've all done something like that we'll never live down. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure. It's kind of fun.
Nancy, I think the things you've said about web design make me want to go take a look at the Chamber website, because I think it's such a natural thing to tell people what you want them to know and to sort of treat it like, here's my billboard, instead of what is it that your customer is trying to discover, and how do you
I kind
in their mind?
of think of it as kind of like so if you met someone and they started telling you how great they are, and that's all they wanted to talk about was how great they are, you probably wouldn't want to be around them very much. But you can kind of think of it as, it's kind of like a courtship. So, what I just told you would be an example of a really bad dating profile. Nobody would be interested in it, but you can use storytelling to kind of invite people in. So the dating profile that would be good is the one that says, let's sit on the beach together and have a picnic and watch the sunset, because you're putting the other person in the scene. So that's one way to kind of think about it.
And that applies really to any messaging you do, whether it's an email or a website. You really want to show your customer how you're solving their problem, and have them imagine how that experience might make their life better.
Yeah, empathize and help them imagine the outcome of using your products and services.
Other questions, folks? We have this incredible marketing expert with us here today.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but thank you.
Well, what you've said makes so much sense. I love the idea that the best story wins. Can you tell us about an example with one of your current or past customers where you were able to take a story and bring it to life?
Well, it's always an ongoing process and it's really hard to advocate for this. So, because people, like I have clients that they kind of are really stuck in the mindset of like, this is how great I am. And it's hard to say to them, nobody cares, tell them what you can do for them. And so I really have a hard time advocating for that.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've really been too successful with that yet, but I would like to. I'd really like to try.
I know one of your customers is Hog Molly Brewing, and we've had Lou and Martha on 49 Fridays. Can you talk about that project?
Yeah, that project was really fun, and it was kind of an example of I can kind of use that as an example of one of my values of like doing no harm, not trying to sell things that people don't need, because when they contacted me, they wanted me to take over for someone that they were unhappy with that was maintaining their website. And so when I talked to them first, I really wanted to make sure I knew what the problem was, because I didn't want to repeat it. And so when I heard about their marketing goals and everything, I thought, I just think these people don't want to have someone maintaining their site, and And so I said, you know, do you just want to not have to rely on somebody like me to do all this? Because I can't guarantee that I would be available immediately every time you want to post something. And I said, do you want to be independent? And they were like, well, yeah, is that possible? And I said, I think it's possible. We could, it's worth a try anyway. So, so that's what we did. We worked towards making them independent, and we kind of did that by coming up with a plan. And the plan was to try to keep them. We made the website, or I made the website so that everything updated automatically, so they don't have to do a lot of updates. I do have them, like, you know, they got to check in once a week and make sure, because the WordPress core is not going to update. And I showed them how to do that, and a few other things. And then they have, we used feeds for other things from social media sites like Instagram. And I set them up with a calendar for events that, so they're doing most of their work outside of WordPress, and that's what they're most comfortable with, social media. So they can do most of their marketing work outside of the website, and then just check in once a week.
And just pull it across.
Yeah, yeah. And their SEO was already kind of, their SEO was pretty good to begin with. So they've got a lot of good Google reviews. So I didn't really see much sense in spending too much money on like keyword research, because I didn't think it would get them anything much more than what they've already got. So
they have a pretty unique, pretty loyal following already.
Yeah, they do. They do. I know people that just go for the food trucks, you know.
I just put the URL in the chat box so people could go see some of your work. It's really nice, clean looking website. And I love they have they pull across the dogs of Hog Molly. And
yeah, you can bring your dog out there.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Well,
yeah,
Nancy,
they're really nice people.
We're coming up on 9 o'clock. So I do want to just say thank you, because this was a great lesson in online marketing, as well as hearing your founder's story. And I thought your slides were beautiful, so I could imagine how your skills as a designer helped you there. So that was lovely. I really, really enjoyed hearing it. And I know the rest of the group probably feels the same way. We are putting together some programs coming up, and I will just tell you on November 13th, you'll be interested in this too, Nance. Andy J Pizza is his business name, but his name is Andy Miller, and he grew up in Columbus, and he is an illustrator, and you will have seen his designs in ads for Nutella, national magazines. He does a creative pep talk podcast, and he has stories for kids. He has a children's book. He does public speaking about harnessing creativity. And if you watch Nickelodeon and you see the little cartoons at the bottom of the screen, if you ever have the TV on and see those little like Halloween characters or whatnot, pretty likely that it was Andy's work. So he's getting a lot of national attention, and actually, I have one of his prints right on my wall. He's a really great guy and loves Columbus. So he's coming on November 13th. So we want to make sure you've got your calendar marked to hear how someone takes their artistic skills and translates that into a really viable business. Thank you all. Have a happy Friday.
Thank you.
And a great weekend. Bye, Nancy.
Thanks.
Thank you.